When I was a teenager, particularly in my junior and senior years in high school, despite having grown up with very liberal and affirming parents who, and siblings who tell you things and everything, I was absolutely terrified of sex. I mean, I knew the mechanics of it and everything, but my sister and my stepsister, both my sister and my stepsister, had sex. And I remember they would say, "Didn't it hurt the first time?" They talked about it gleefully, which just made no sense to me. So at any rate, I was absolutely terrified about this pain. I don't know why. I think sometimes teenagers were a little bit like crazy with the hormones, and so we get obsessive about things. So this was an obsession of mine. And in my senior year in high school, we had to take a required, it was called health class, right? Which of course was the sex ed class, among other things. And my teacher, Mr. Bain, did something somewhat unique for its time. He was actually a really nice guy. That is, we got to ask anonymous questions of the teacher, and even of the opposite sex. So I got to ask my burning question: was there any way to avoid the pain of sex? And he gave me a very simple answer: no, not really. And while that is sort of true, he didn't talk about anything else, right? He didn't talk about all the other things that go with it, the feelings of intimacy and trust, the pleasure if it's done right, how overwhelming those hormones are. Oh my goodness, they can drive you to have sex. None of that was discussed or explained. Because unfortunately, Al wasn't invented when I was in high school. Now, Our Whole Lives was created in 1999 as a joint project between the Unitarian Universalist Association and United Church of Christ. But its roots go back actually much further. In the 1970s, the UUA offered a groundbreaking program that was called AYS, or About Your Sexuality. And it was one of the first church-based curricula to take sexuality seriously as part of spiritual development. It was honest about things that many schools did not discuss, like birth control, sexual orientation, pleasure, and relationships. It was bold and controversial, and it saved lives. By the 1990s, AYS needed an update, including adding in information about gender identity and expression. And that's when a team of educators, ministers, and parents from the UUA and UCC, which if you didn't know about UCC, they are the wonderful, they're kind of like kissing cousins to us. They are Christian, but they're very, very loving and open with us, and we do a lot of things with them. So all of these, we came together basically to create Our Whole Lives, and they drew on the best practices of sexuality education, psychology, child development, and theology. And they created all these different levels as well, from kindergarten to adulthood, and they built it around 4 core principles, okay? The first was self-worth, that every person is valuable and deserving in dignity to his or her own attitudes and beliefs about sexuality. Sexual health, every individual has the right to accurate information about sexuality. Healthy sexual relationships are consensual, non-exploitive, mutually pleasurable, safe, developmentally appropriate, and respectful. And responsibility, all persons have the right and obligation to make responsible sexual choices. We are called to express sexuality in ways that enhance human wholeness. And of course, justice and inclusivity, that all sexualities and all gender identities deserve respect. OWL is widely regarded as one of the most comprehensive, inclusive, and effective sexuality education programs available anywhere, and even Oprah Winfrey endorsed it. Contrary to what you might think, it is not just about sexual intercourse. As a matter of fact, that plays a very small part of the education. Rather, it's about values and relationship and identity and consent and bullying and boundaries and justice. It gives little children, for example, agency over their bodies to say ouch or stop it when they don't want to be hugged or tickled or to play, and they just want to play differently, like in our story today. It's about teaching young people about healthy relationships as well. And, baby, get lost if you're not treated respectfully. It's about teaching children, youth, and adults that sexuality is good and sacred part of life, one to be lived with respect, care, and joy. It teaches all things that I didn't learn from my well-meaning health teacher. I guess you could say it's about letting that little light shine. Now, you might ask, don't schools provide sex education? Isn't it enough that our children go through curriculum like this is what they teach mostly here in Orange County, Positive Prevention Plus. It's often mandated for junior highs in particular, if I remember correctly. Now, it's true that California has one of the more progressive states when it comes to sex education. Positive Prevention Plus is a medically accurate and includes some attention to HIV, consent, and LGBTQ issues. Many of our youth will experience this in school. But here's why Our Whole Lives is crucial, okay? First of all, ours is value-based. School curriculum, even when accurate, avoid values. They may explain contraception, but they won't ask, what kind of relationship do you want to build? What does respect look like? What does love feel like? OWL dares to ask those deeper questions. It's also whole person focused. So Positive Prevention Plus is focused largely on disease and pregnancy prevention. OWL addresses this, but also the larger picture, that is body image, media literacy, so understanding what you're hearing on the internet and what is good or not good, right? Self-esteem, spiritual meaning, communication, which is absolutely vital in any sexual relationship, justice, and joy. It also doesn't gloss over sexual orientation and gender identity as well. Yes, okay, that happens, but rather this is a normal way of being in the world. It also is created here in a safe community. In our church, OWL happens in the context of a supportive, intergenerational, covenantal community, and that matters. When youth hear you are worthy from their faith community, it's rooted in the message in something lasting. I wonder if Mr. Bain had said something like that to me, would it have made a difference? The other thing is that it also creates more ongoing relationships. Schools teach as a unit, right? But OWL builds a ministry. Our youth don't just hear about sexual health, they build trust with adults who can continue to support them as allies and even as mentors. To put it short, OWL goes beyond information, it is about formation. It goes beyond information, it is about formation. It shapes the way young people and how they love and how they see themselves in the world. And this brings us to a bit of a hard truth that's going on right now, because sexuality education is under attack. Right now, we're living in a time of rising hostility toward LGBTQ people, particularly those around transgender people. The current administration is rolling back protections, banning transgender people from serving in the military, attempting to allow discrimination in healthcare, erasing trans identities from federal documents. And across the country, we see this massive increase in laws that are being introduced and passing that ban teachers from even mentioning LGBTQ people, laws that criminalize gender-affirming care, school boards removing books from libraries, politicians demonizing drag queens while ignoring gun violence. Even marriage equality is under attack. There are renewed legal efforts to challenge Obergefell versus Hodges, which is, if you don't remember, is the 2015 ruling that legalized same-sex marriage nationwide. If you didn't know, the former Kentucky clerk Kim Davis has filed a petition asking SCOTUS to revisit that landmark decision, and 6 legislatures have affirmed it. And a memo on Friday from our administration states that all federal employee health plans will be barred from gender-affirming care, including hormone therapy and surgeries. But they're going to allow counseling, will be included, which will also include faith-based counseling, better known as conversion therapy, which can only, to my mind, be described as horrific abuse. And not coincidentally, these same forces are attacking all of sex education. They want to control the story, to silence truth, to enforce a narrow, harmful view of gender, sexuality, and family. We need to be clear. These attacks are not about protecting children, they're about controlling them. They're about controlling bodies, choices, identities, and futures. And that's why OWL is not just a program, it's resistance. Here in Orange County, some school districts have been pressured to strip back lessons on sexual orientation and gender identity. Parents groups, often organized with political funding, have disrupted school board meetings. And if you all remember, at the Huntington Beach Library, there have been protests against LGBTQ inclusive books and curriculum, such that the Huntington Beach Library has to refile some of their books for just mentioning any sex organ, including going potty. Yeah, okay. We cannot ignore the fact that these movements are emboldened by the current administration and its allies. They frame the LGBTQ plus rights and honest sex education as threats to traditional family values. And they seek to return us to a time when silence and shame ruled. And silence and shame are deadly. Deadly. Silence leads to ignorance, which leads to disease, abuse, fear, and despair. And shame leads to self-harm, secrecy, broken relationships, and even, unfortunately, death. By contrast, education and affirmation saves lives. Studies show that the LGBTQ plus youth who have even one affirming adult are significantly less likely to attempt suicide. Just one. OWL helps us raise an entire generation of affirming adults. That's why we're making a very bold commitment here in this congregation. Beginning this September, we're going to offer OWL. We're going to do grades 4 through 6 first. And every year after that, we're going to rotate through the different levels of OWL. Will be training opportunities if you want to get involved in that. You have to be very specifically trained for it. But we're going to be able to do that every single year, so that across time our children and youth will have an opportunity to learn. And it's also not just for us. If you didn't know, anybody can join in on this, right? We're going to invite the wider community to participate. If you know of parents with children in these age groups, grades 4 through 6, neighbors, coworkers, friends, please reach out to them. Tell them that this is available. Tell them that in a time when many schools are under pressure, this is still a place where kids can learn the truth about their bodies, their hearts, their identities, and their worth. This is ministry, this is service, it is justice. When we affirm LGBTQ identities, we teach consent. And when we teach consent, when we empower people to love themselves and others, we are living our faith. We are saying every body is sacred, every life is worthy, every love is holy. And I'll tell you this is a ministry. OWL teachers don't just deliver lessons, they hold space for honesty, vulnerability, and growth. They bless young people with this radical message of you are loved, you are not alone, you are whole. And that is gospel Unitarian Universalist style. Here are some quotes for those who have taken OWL. One said, "OWL was the first place I heard that being gay was okay. I think it saved my life." Another said, "It has made me much more comfortable in my own sexuality as well as my platonic relationships. I feel that OWL gave me the confidence in my own ability to hold healthy relationships, and I believe I am well prepared for a long-term serious relationship in comparison to peers my age." I got these off of Reddit, by the way. Another said, "I loved it and would definitely sign my kids up at some point when I get the chance. I think about my experience in OWL often and about how it made me much more savvy when it came to relationships. My first priority was always making sure that both my partner and I felt safe and comfortable. I also think it changed my worldview to the point that it literally altered my career goals. For years, I wanted to study sexuality because of OWL, and now I'm getting a higher degree in gender studies." Another person said, OWL rocks. I'm definitely so thankful for having it. I just haven't had much luck in meeting other people who are at the same level of sex ed, which in dating context I have found to be tiresome to downright dangerous. And in fact, when you look up, like, what are the problems with OWL, this is one of the biggest complaints that the kids who've gone through OWL is I know so much more than everybody else, I end up teaching everybody. I thought it was hilarious. So in a world where some leaders are trying to erase LGBTQ plus people, restrict what's being taught in schools, and shame young people into silence, we as a church are answering with love, with truth, and courage. OWL is one of the most radical ministries we can offer at this moment. It says to every child, you are good. Your love is good. Your questions are good. You are good. So I want to invite us all to carry this commitment forward together. Let's make sure every child, every family who needs this program knows that they are welcome here, because this is what it means to answer the call of love. Not in theory, but in action, in teaching, and blessing the generations to come, just like they blessed us last week. Because this is the truth. Love has always been radical. And in the end, it is love that will guide us. Please rise in body or spirit and let us sing.